An idol is not just a little wooden cow or a concrete Buddha. An idol is anything that we have in our life that takes precedence over God. It's the things that we give too much attention to. It's things in our heart that we worship and adore more than God. So let's look at Haman's 3 idols. Let's start with money. Now again, money is not sinful. Having lots of money, not sinful. It's only sinful when your heart develops a love for money. For many of us, we have a sinful desire to be rich. We think that having more wealth or more money would make us more happy, or getting a nicer house or nicer things would make us more joyful. If we're being honest with ourselves, all of us struggle with the love of money to one degree or another. It's not a matter of if I struggle with this sin, but how much do I struggle with it, and in what way do I struggle with it? Now, in my mind, there's 2 sides of the coin when it comes to the sin of the love of money. The first side is for those who are typically not well off. Money is an idol because they desire money in a way that is sinful. They think that money will solve all their problems. They think they will have more security and comfort if they only had more money in the bank. The other side of the coin is for those who are typically more well off. They have money in the bank, and wealth can be an idol in the sense that money brings comfort and stability. Their temptation is to replace God as our only hope and source of stability with money. We will see that Haman later in our story is not as stable as he maybe thought he was. Money couldn't save him from the gallows. For all of us, regardless of what side of the coin you are on, money can be something you place your hope in more than Christ. The nice thing is that God has given clear instruction for both sides of the coin in 1 Timothy chapter 6. 1 Timothy chapter 6, starting in verse 8 says, "But if we have food and clothing, with this we will be content. But those who desire to be rich fall into temptation, into a snare, into many senseless and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction." So according to this verse, we should be content with food and clothing alone. My first thought here is, Paul, aren't you forgetting something, bro? Aren't you forgetting shelter? You know? This reminds me of a passage in Matthew when Jesus, or someone comes to Jesus and says, "I'll follow you wherever you go." And Jesus responds with, "Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to rest his head." Even Jesus had no shelter during his earthly ministry. Would you be content with just food and clothing because you have Christ? Is Christ enough? He also says that those who desire to be rich will fall into temptation because their desires are evil. Now, if your desires are to grow wealth and make money for your own comfort and pleasures, Paul says that you will plunge into ruin and destruction. Now, it's not wrong to want to build wealth, okay? It's not wrong to want to invest money. It's good for us to want to leave an inheritance for our children's children. It only becomes sin when you want to use money for selfish and vain pursuits. We see Paul later in 1 Timothy chapter 6 give counsel on what the rich are supposed to do with their money. This is the other side of the coin. He says, starting in verse 17, "As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. They are to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share, thus storing up treasures for themselves as a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of that which is truly life." Again, we see here that it's not wrong to have money. But God, through Paul, gives very clear instruction on how the rich are to handle their money. They are to be generous. We see an example of this in the beginning of Acts. People would sell their lands that they owned, and they would bring the money and lay it at the apostles' feet. They're not to set their hopes in riches. They are to be ready to share their wealth, knowing that their true inheritance is not on this earth, but in heaven.